Boy, I got money in the bank, gold in the safe, 30 in the clip, I got more in my waist. Done the whole shit, I can let it go to waste. Hold up. Boy, I got money in the bank, gold in the safe, 30 in the clip, I got more in my waist. Done the whole shit, I can let it go to waste.
This live stream may contain content that could be perceived as shocking or offensive, but it is presented solely for educational purposes. Viewer discretion is advised. We strive to adhere to community guidelines, and any potentially sensitive material is shared with the intent of fostering understanding and learning.
Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy, Atypical Security Guard, coming to you today with a interesting update. I actually had forgotten about the story. It's crazy to think how fast time flies. There was a situation where a security guard had shot a gentleman. I believe this happened in Memphis, Tennessee. I want to say that this was 2021. Once I looked at the story, it was like, oh shit, I completely forgot about that. Partly because I work for a major grocery store retailer. The last couple of stories that I've brought to you guys involving either security guards or things that have happened at grocery stores, these are within the conglomerate for which I work for. So, a lot of these situations and issues, they hit close to home because these are environments that I'm in, that I'm working in on a daily basis and stuff that I see. So I thought about this story. And I was like, man, I completely forgot about this. So I'm going to go ahead and give you guys the background. The security guard was found guilty of murder, I believe, on Monday. The story is coming out of Memphis, Tennessee. A jury found a former security guard who was found guilty of killing a man at a Kroger gas station. Gregory Livingston was found guilty of first-degree murder on May 3rd, 2024. Livingston was charged with first-degree murder and arrested for the death of Alvin Motley. Police at the time said that Livingston shot and killed Motley at a Kroger fuel center. Police reported that Livingston, a security guard for Allied Universal Security, who was working at the Kroger fuel center, admitted to shooting the man. And a witness told authorities that the two had been arguing over the volume of music coming from Motley's car before Livingston pulled the trigger. Motley died at the scene. If you remember this video, and it's very difficult to find like the full video. I know that when this situation happened in 2021, I had put up a video breaking down the shooting. I cannot for the life of me find that video, and a lot of the footage that's available from the CCTV footage is very difficult to find it, and I would have to do a lot of editing to show you guys that in its entirety, or else YouTube would pull my video down like they do everything that I put up. It's a different rant. We're not going to go down that road. But the situation is this. Let me just kind of paint the picture. The security guard is working at a fuel center. This is a very large gas station. Think of like your Costco where you've got, 10, 15 pumps. The subject pulls up, is playing his music. Security guard and him have words. The guy is at least, 30, 40 feet away from the security guard, starts walking in the direction of the security guard. Now, the subject is holding what I think is maybe a drink in one hand. He has a cigarette in the other hand. They're having words. And as he walks towards the security guard from about 20 feet away, the security guard draws his firearm and points it directly at the subject. He gives the subject commands and then pulls the trigger when the guy is about 10 feet away from him. There's no objective movement that this person makes, the subject makes towards the security guard. Doesn't even seem like he's really that pressed. I mean, he doesn't seem to be super angry or upset. We can't hear what's being said, but he makes no movements towards any sort of weapons. I don't believe there was any weapons that were found on him. And there's plenty of space in the situation, especially seeing as how this is happening outside, to where the security guard was not objectively in any fear for his life. I want to bring in a video. This video is going to be coming from Indisputable. This is a channel that is run by the Young Turks. If you guys follow politics, if you follow political commentary, TYT, the Young Turks, it's a very left-leaning platform. They tend to be very anti-law enforcement. They tend to put a lot of stories up that are very inflammatory, that have a lot of racial base to them. I'm sharing this video with you guys because if you're a security guard and you follow this channel, this is what I'm trying to get across to you. Two things. Number one, we are not law enforcement. Number two, we don't have the backing of law enforcement. We don't have the weight of the justice system behind our actions. And also, we don't have control. Once we've done something and kind of put ourselves in a position where we're now within the teeth of the justice system, we don't have an opportunity to control that narrative. We have an opportunity to set the narrative and control the narrative before we draw that firearm, well before we pull that trigger. Once we've done that in the court of public opinion, a lot of the narrative around what happened, a lot of the narrative around why you found yourself in that situation, it's out of your hands. And I need you guys to understand this because too many private security guards are following the path of law enforcement, are looking to law enforcement, are looking to the way that law enforcement officers carry themselves, how they behave, what they're able to get away with, and thinking that we in our industry can do that same thing. And it is not the case. And when I was listening to this video this morning from Indisputable that we're going to play here in a second, the narrative and the commentary of what he says is so dead on accurate to what I come on here and say almost weekly with every video breakdown that we do. So I'm going to bring in the video. Again, video credit goes to Indisputable, care of the Young Turks with Rashad Ritchie, all rights reserved. The link to the video is in the description. Let's hear it.
Security guard who decided to shoot a black man for playing music, well, put him up for a mask. He has now been found guilty. Former security guard Gregory Livingston, who decided to fatally shoot an unarmed African-American male, Alvin Motley, will now spend the rest of his life behind bars and has been found guilty of first-degree murder. Livingston worked as a contract security guard for Kroger. He was patrolling the grocery store and the gas station when Motley and Foster pulled up to a pump. He confronted Mr. Motley and yelled at him, "Turn down your music." Okay, he's not law enforcement, he's the security guy. Livingston had his gun drawn and told Mr. Motley to back up and then decided to shoot him once square in the chest. Motley was only carrying a cigarette in one hand and a beer in the other. He died at the scene. Livingston's trial took less than 1 week to complete. His attorneys built his trial defense on a self-defense claim, asserting that he feared for his life and had no idea what Motley was going to do when he approached him. With millions watching and many people benefiting from.
Stand by 1 second. He does this crazy thing where he brings in an ask for donations. Let me get past that. Stand by. That has nothing to do with what we're looking at. 1 second.
As a security officer, not a police officer. See, here's the irony of this whole thing. If you were a police officer, based on the Supreme Court's ruling, that defense would actually stand even though you committed murder.
Right.
Because a cop gets to have a subjective standard, meaning his own or her own impression of what was happening counts. You, however, you have an objective standard, meaning a reasonable person looking at the situation in an objective manner, would they come to the same conclusion as you did?
I want you guys to hear that. Let me pull this down for 1 second. So, although I don't often agree with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, I believe that he's a practicing attorney or he's passed the bar. He has his attorney's license. What he just said is verbatim what I say all the time. He said it a little bit more eloquently than I do. He says that As a law enforcement officer, you are able to operate within a subjective reality. Many times we see situations where to the common man, to the everyday person, you look at that shooting and you say, that's not right. That's not right. I don't agree with that. I don't think that that's okay how that went down. That police officer should be, fired, terminated, prosecuted. And in many situations, up until recently, but in many situations, the police officer is deemed to have operated in a way that aligns with the policies of the police department. They're able to say, I subjectively felt in fear for my life. And to the average person, it doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't. They have the ability to rely on that statement to justify a lot of things that they do that oftentimes seen by the public don't seem right, reasonable, or okay. Private security guards are not fucking police officers. Our standard of operating, our standards of engagement, definitely when it comes to using justifiable use of deadly force, it's objective. And I've had this argument with so many people. Subjective means that whatever the officer felt at that time. Objective means what a reasonable person would look at and say, yeah, I would have done the exact same thing. And in the situation with the security guard in question, when you look at the video, and I urge you, if you have the time, to go and seek out the video on your own, there is nothing about that situation where a reasonable, sane, sober, moral human being would say, that makes sense. But there's another part to the video that I want you to hear. And this is the part where the racial element, the optics of the situation come into play. Now, you might be one of those people who right here is where you say, this is where I log off. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear the racial shit. I don't believe in the woke mafia. Okay. I'm not here to tell you that you have to. I'm not here to tell you that you should. I'm not saying that I agree with you or I disagree with you. What I am saying is that the reality of where we are in 2024 is that what this man is about to say is ultimately what is permeating the court of public opinion, which will also lead to how people see the actions that you or I take in the private security industry. Stand by.
Prosecutors showed jurors the videos and maintained that Motley was not a threat, noting the items he was carrying when he approached Livingston. One prosecutor told the court that Mr. Motley was also legally blind and may not have seen the gun that Livingston was carrying. After the shooting, Livingston called the police but never rendered medical aid. Livingston was sentenced to life in prison. Court records show his attorneys they have already filed a motion for a new trial. He was initially charged with second-degree murder, but a grand jury indicted him on first-degree murder December 2021 after reviewing cell phone and surveillance videos. There's a statement from Attorney Ben Crump, quote, they said what this family has been feeling the whole time, that this was not only necessary, unnecessary, not only unjustifiable, but it was heartless. It was a heartless killing of a young man who was armed with only a can of beer and a cigarette, said Attorney Ben Crump. Mr. Motley lived in Chicago. He owned a clothing business. He visited Memphis to do business and meet with family members and had just arrived in the city before he was shot, killed. He was an aspiring actor, entertainer, and he was also a media personality who simply went there to further his entrepreneurial prowess. All right, so here we go. Now, you have to look at cause and effect even before you get to the cause and effect. And so this guy.
I want you to pay very close attention to the next few sentences that Dr. Ritchie and his co-host are about to say. I want you to hear this, and I want you to understand where they're coming from and what point they're trying to make.
I will serve the rest of his life in prison. Justice has been served in that arena to the degree that it can. All right. Justice, unfortunately, can only be reactive. but he felt emboldened. He felt empowered. He felt as if he would get away with this. He didn't even take a plea deal in order to get a lighter sentence. He decided to go to trial believing that members of that jury would believe him, at least one of them. So how do you get to this place? Well, you get to this place through social engineering, typically.
Interesting. I made a video 3 days ago talking about implicit bias, talking about the things that we watch, the things that we subject ourselves to, the things that we allow ourselves to consume, whether this is social media, whether this is videos online, whether this is certain Reddit forums, being on 4chan, all of the things that allow you to paint certain demographics and certain people in a certain light. And then you take that and you multiply that by being in the security industry, where we take our cues from law enforcement. We take our cues from former forward operators who say certain things, who joke about certain things, who teach tactics on engaging civilians in a certain way, in a certain manner, making it seem as though that is the way to do your job. And then repeatedly, time and time again, seeing situations where law enforcement officers are able to employ these techniques and actually be able to have it justified. That is why security guards find themselves in situations where they are mentally programmed to think that this is the way that they can act, and that somehow they're going to be justified because the people that they follow, the people that they look up to, the people that they one day want to be like, they do it all the time. It's okay for them to do it. And now he's going to spend the rest of his life in prison. Let me finish this out.
And all of the individuals are responsible for their own evil deeds. But there's a comfort seemingly present today to make Black men and Black women the hunt. All right. This is the thoughts here.
Yeah, he thought he could get off with it, right? He thought, which is amazing that he decided to go to trial, right? He's just a security guard. He's not a cop, as you mentioned. We understand.
He's just a security guard. He's not a cop. When the rubber meets the road at the end of the day, it is so important for people that are in our industry to understand that that's how they see us. That's how they see us. There's no respect for us, guys. There's no respect for what we do. There's no respect for what we bring to the table, the fact that we put our lives on the line. You're just a security guard. And when they say that, they're not saying that in any other way than how it sounds. There's no respect there. There's no appreciation. There's no courtesy. There's nothing. So if you find yourself in this situation, just know that you are going to be put in a position where you're given the absolute least amount of benefit of the doubt. Okay. I want to share with you guys a situation that I found myself in yesterday. What's the takeaway from all this, right? It's control of the narrative. I said earlier in this live stream that the only time that we get a chance to control this narrative is well before you present the firearm, well before you've sent it, right, so to speak. I made a video going into work yesterday about First Amendment auditors. I was talking about how to control the narrative if you're being filmed. And then, wouldn't you know it, around 3:00 yesterday at the location where I'm working, a very large Native American man comes in. If you look at the thumbnail of this video, I made a Native American man standing inside of the convenience store because that's exactly what we had happen. This guy comes in easily, I would say 6'4", 285 to 300 pounds. Very, very big guy. I mean, literally makes me look small in comparison. He comes in clearly drunk and tries to pick a fight with one of the first people that he sees. Now, to the other guy's credit, he hears the guy kind of buck up and say some shit and kind of like walk towards him. This guy keeps moving. I found out later in the night, because the guy's doing Instacart, I found out later in the night that the guy that he approached, he's actually 11 Bravo military. Like, he completely could handle himself. He was aware of the situation, but there was no fear in this guy's heart and he wasn't trying to get involved. He continued going down towards the other side of the store. The Native American guy continues to scream and yell, and he's being aggressive. And one of our managers just happens to be in the area. So she looks over and she's like, hey, like, I don't know what the problem is, but I'm gonna have to ask you to leave. So all of this happens within 2 minutes. I'm right in the vicinity. So I walk over to the guy. I'm like, hey, is everything all right? I'm trying to de-escalate the situation. And if you work in security, there's times where someone's aggressive, someone is, a little out of control. And when you approach them and you try to de-escalate the situation, they're either so drunk, so high, or so out of it, there's really no way to have any sort of communication with this person. So immediately he's like, get away from me. Fuck you. You want to go? You want to go? And so, I call for backup. I get the other guys there. We have 2 other guards on scene. So there's 3 guards, a couple of plainclothes security, and we have the management. We proximity to this guy and kind of get enough people around him to where if we have to do anything, like we got decent numbers, I'm feeling comfortable with it. And we're able to kind of guide him towards the front of the store. Now, while all this is happening, he's continually being aggressive. He's being combative. He's flinching at each one of the officers. He's walking up towards the manager, putting his finger in her face. He's getting aggressive. And it's signaling that this is a situation that ultimately is probably going to end up with something happening. And while everything is happening around us, everybody's getting their phones out. People are like, oh shit, okay, here it comes. All right, yeah. So I'm aware of this. I'm seeing this. I'm sensing this. And my thought process is just get the guy to the door. But at the same time, I'm very aware and cognizant of the optics. When I talk about controlling the narrative, I want you guys to remember that, from a private security standpoint, we have an opportunity. And I really think that law enforcement should try to do this, but that's a different video. We have an opportunity to set the narrative for whatever potentially happens. Once you know that things are going south, once you know that this person more than likely is not going to de-escalate, that you're more than likely going to have to go hands-on, whether that's pepper spray, whether that's taser, God forbid, a firearm, you have to start not only setting the narrative of why you're doing what you're doing, but being able to articulate why you did what you did. Right? So once we get this guy to an area where he's close enough to the door, I start giving directives to all the officers. Hey, everybody fan out, everybody back up. Now I'm trying to get the focus solely on me. I'm talking directly to this person. Hey, focus over here. Listen. You don't have to stay here. You can go. Right? No one here is detaining you. We've already called the cops. All we want you to do is leave. We're giving you every opportunity to go out the door. We don't want to fight with you. I don't want to fight with you. There's nothing that has to happen here, right? I am making this very well known to everybody in the vicinity as well as him that we don't want anything else to go any further, right? Setting that narrative. I'm going to go through the steps here. Let me back up a second. I'm going to take this through a couple of steps here. What we're talking about is setting the narrative and controlling the optics. And I kind of already got into the meat and potatoes of that, but let me back up a little bit. I have a feeling that when we are working in security, since we're so responsible for every single action, we're responsible for what we do. We're responsible for being able to articulate in an objective way why we did what we did. We have to approach every potential hands-on situation different than law enforcement. If the cops would have come in, the fact that the cops didn't show up for 20 minutes is a different video as well. But if the cops were to have come in, they come in and they see him losing his shit, screaming, yelling, bucking up on everybody, surrounded by 3 security guards and management. The cops are going to come in and immediately start giving directives. Hey, get on the ground. Get on the ground right now. Get on the ground. Get on the ground, motherfucker. Get on the ground. Once they go hands on, hey, stop resisting. Stop resisting. Stop resisting. That is one approach that sets one particular narrative. I want you guys to stay with me here. If the cops would have come in at the height of what was happening, more than likely, that's the approach they would have taken. I can't stress to you guys how big this guy was. And I can't stress to you guys how combative and belligerent and aggressive he was, right? There's no doubt in my mind that if the police had come in that situation, in that environment, with the customers that we had there, the fact that he's blocking the exit, people can't leave, people can't get around him, people are scared, that they would have come in with a lot more heat, a lot more aggression. Now, the fact that he's native, the fact that this is Portland, all of that plays into the optics, and the way that the cops come in, that sets one particular narrative. But we got to remember, the police officers are able to basically have the stance that, look, our job is to deal with the problem. Our job is to end the threat, deal with the problem, take this person into custody, at the very least, get them out of your location. We're not there to, adhere to some sort of kid glove situation or adhere to some sort of woke principles. We're there to get the job done. And since they have the backing of the system, and since they have the immunity, they actually can do that. But it's important for private security guards to understand that you don't have that option. Just like in the situation where the security guard ends up shooting the guy at the gas station. I don't know what the circumstances were before the video kicks on. And most often we never do. We don't know what happened in Memphis at a gas station with a guy that pulls up in a car, bumping his music. Who knows? We could probably assume that the security guard said, hey, would you mind turning that down? And then things escalate and things get to a point. And when the camera comes on, it's at the height of the conversation where now words are being exchanged. In the situation that we were in, I tried to take the approach. I always try to take the approach that when the cameras come out and the situation is about to get to that point where something potentially is going to happen, I want to make sure that I have control of that narrative. We don't take the law enforcement approach of get the fuck out now, get the fuck out now, you go now. No, if you want to fucking go, we'll fucking go. Let's go then. And then something happens. No, it's everybody calm down, everybody back up. I'm telling the person that's causing this problem that I don't want to fight with him. I'm telling everybody who's chirping in and chiming in to back up, to be quiet, to stop engaging. And repeatedly, over and over again, telling this person, you can leave. Hey, man, we don't want to fight with you. You can leave. The steps to this, number one, is proximity. You have to have enough proximity to let this person know that you're there, that you see what's happening. They see the uniform, they see the tools, they see the firearm. They're clearly aware that you're the person that is there to deal with the issue. Now, you can end up being gasoline to that fire or a bridge to them cooperating. And that all comes down to how you carry yourself. That's number four. That's going to be demeanor. It is so important as a private security guard to remember who you are. I want you to hear that again. It's so important as a private security guard to remember who you are. Who are you? You are one person 90% of the time. You might be able to big dog the 100-pound tweaker. You might be able to big dog the, college kid who's not quite sure of himself yet. You're not going to big dog the 6'4", 6'5", 300-pound drunk native. I'm not going to be able to big dog, and I'm 6'2", 275 pounds. You're just not. You can't approach every situation the same exact way. You have to understand how to control your demeanor. And if you're trying to de-escalate, be comfortable being in that position. Who else are you? You're a security guard. You're not a cop. You don't have a button that you can hit that's going to send the cavalry to back you up. Once you get into that situation where you're engaging, you're in it. And you might be in it on your own. There was a point where someone said to me yesterday, can't you guys just grab him and get him out? In theory. But once I put my hands on this guy, then what? Now it's going to be a fight. This isn't going to be a situation where I'm going to go grab this guy and light guiding touch him out of the location. The second that I get close enough to him, this is going to become a fight. If I'm lucky, it becomes a fight. If I'm unlucky, it becomes a situation where he produces a weapon he does something where I have to assume this is going to go even further south. Now I have to respond. Your best way to handle this is to proximity yourself, get a little bit of distance, a little bit of space, and then utilize the demeanor that is necessary. Now, at some point in time in the situation, we had been standing there for so long, going back and forth for so long, nothing is happening. He's not leaving. He's not backing down. The people that are in the vicinity can't leave. At this point in time, what do? We can't continue to stand here for the next 15, 20, 30 minutes. So the verbal narrative has to shift. It goes from, we don't want to fight with you. We don't want any problems with you. We're not trying to give you a hard time. Just leave, to now I'm giving you commands. And at this point, when I'm giving commands, I'm doing this not just for his benefit, but for everybody else, because I can sense that things are starting to ratchet up a couple of levels. So now it goes from, hey, just leave, to get out now. Go now. The door is that way. Go now. Get out. Go. You're trespassed. You're now trespassing. Go. Don't come towards me. No, stop. Do not walk towards me. Go. Why am I doing this? Because I'm trying to signal to him that we have now gone from A to B. And this is your opportunity to make a different decision. But it's also important for everyone who's potentially watching, potentially filming, the people that are going to be interviewed if anything happens. It's important to set that narrative. Police officer shows up. You've had to tase this guy. Hey, what happened? I don't know. I saw the guy sitting there telling this dude like 50 times that he didn't want to fight. He told him, 30 times, hey, the door's that way. Nobody was blocked. Matter of fact, he told everybody to back up. He told the guy, hey, I'm going to take 10 steps back. Go ahead and go. And then there was a point where he kind of ramped it up and was like, hey, just go. And he said, don't come towards me. I heard him say that. Don't come towards me. Right? That's increasing your tone to signal to this person and everyone else that the situation has changed. At that point in time, now we're at the last step, which is articulation of objectionable reasonableness. Objectionable reasonableness. Am I saying that right? I can't talk today. Objective reasonableness. Let's just say that. Okay. So now if you have to do something, you're able to articulate why you did it, and everyone around you is able to articulate why you did it. Okay. At this point in time, I start to arc my taser, which is where you make it like go zzz, like that. And that's signaling to him that we are serious and that we're at a point of basically no return. Now it's time for you to either go backwards out the door or towards me, at which point I'm going to deal with this how I see fit. Most private security guards fail to set the narrative in this way. You can't hear on the audio, or you can't hear the audio on the surveillance video of the shooting at the gas station. But if there's no audio that's there, something as simple as stop, no, stop, and backing away, stop, no, go, no, stop. Small things like that would go a long way in his defense as to why he felt necessary to have to do what he did. Now, again, I'm not here to litigate that situation. I'm not here to take his side. I'm trying to draw a point for any of the private security guards who are watching this. You have to remember that there are cameras that are on you at the location where you're working, and there's cameras everywhere. Those are to your benefit. If you're not wearing a body camera, if you're in a situation where that's not something that's provided to you, or you're not able to wear it, the peripheral of people who are filming, that's to your benefit. It's literally what I was talking about yesterday with the First Amendment audit. Allow yourself to be filmed doing the right thing. If you are making every attempt to de-escalate, if you're making every attempt to create proximity where you're backing up, you're moving away, if your gestures and your demeanor are signaling that you do not want to engage, that you don't want to fight this person, you don't want to hurt this person, you don't want to engage with this person, you just want them to leave. If you raise your tone once you have to give them commands, and set that tone with everyone that's around you that, hey, now something else has happened to where we've had to go up another notch, and I'm giving you commands to stop and not move towards me. At that point in time, if you have to do something, even if it ends up using deadly force, it's so much easier to justify that. It's so much easier to justify that. But that takes training. It takes patience. It takes self-awareness. And it takes being willing to spend another 20 minutes in the engagement. Because you're not a cop. You don't get to come in and just start making directives and giving orders. You're going to have to put a little bit more time into the situation. And that's a good thing. If that security guard had put a little bit more time into the process of controlling the narrative, being aware of the optics, taking a deep breath, being a little bit more self-aware of the situation, of everybody around him, of the political ramifications, of the fact that he doesn't have a union, he doesn't have qualified immunity, all of these things while still being safe, still watching the guy, still protecting himself, he could have put himself in a much better place. But these are the two things that we're fighting with in the private security industry. The approach that I'm giving you and the approach that you're getting from law enforcement officers, YouTube content creators, former military guys who were saying, fuck around and find out. And I'll charge you for my class to do so. I'm going to teach you how to clear a room in 2.3 seconds. I'm going to teach you how to draw faster from your hip. I'm going to teach you the cool Krav Maga defensive tactics of handcuffing. All well and good, guys. I'm not telling you not to take those classes. I'm not telling you to not educate yourself and become more knowledgeable. But the shit that's going to keep you out of prison, it's the stuff that I'm talking about. Okay? Let me get these last couple of comments here real quick. Okay. It says, Will P. Max says, if you get respect 9 times out of 10, or say if you give respect, absolutely. Let me bring this back in. Give me 1 second here, guys. I like to have a little background here. Let's do that. All right. So Will P. Max says, if you give respect 9 times out of 10, it is returned. I agree. Guys, if you've ever worked in a prison system, if you've ever been around incarcerated individuals, convicts, however they go, it's all respect. People on the street, it's all respect, right? If you gain the respect of people, even if they can legitimately whoop your ass, or if they do end up whooping your ass, respect is everything, right? How you approach people, how you come at people, how you talk to people, the respect you give, even if they're doing something wrong, it can really de-escalate situations and keep you out of a bad situation. Okay. Westwell says, you're being experimented on with your knowledge or content. Mind messing is pervasive. I have no idea what that means. Okay. Nicholas says, why not get into law enforcement? This is a question that I get asked very, very often. I have played around with the thought of getting into law enforcement since 2020. I was a Pennsylvania state constable. I worked in the prison system. And I really thought about getting into law enforcement in 2020. So much so that I took a test in Missouri, got all the way through the boards, was offered 2 positions while being here in Portland in around 2021, 2022. Some of the issues that I had, though, is I have over 30 some odd tattoos. That was an issue for one department that really pissed me off. And I don't really appreciate the politics and the bureaucracy that comes with law enforcement. The things that I talk about, the things that I bring up as issues, the things that I discuss, a lot of that is a no-go in law enforcement. Having conversations around the historical issues of racism in law enforcement, not something that you're allowed to do. It's just not an area where it's going to be tolerated. And a lot of the things that I have issues within policing in general, it's just not something that's tolerated. So I think that opportunity is probably out of the question for me. Okay. Let me see what I got here. Robert says, that's why in my group, Bouncers of Portland, I stress for them to get to know every security guard, regardless of who they work for. Introduce yourself and exchange numbers. Some may not agree with that out there, but we only have each other there to depend on. I agree. I would personally leave a post to help protect any brother in peril. That's great to hear, man. That's awesome to hear. All right. So anyway, guys, look, that's the story. That's the situation. That is my experience from yesterday. A little bit more disjointed than my usual streams, but I hope that you guys get the point. We have to be very, very aware and careful in terms of the optics. We have to also be able to articulate why we did what we did. And that articulation has to be objective, not subjective. We do not get that benefit. Okay. I feared for my life is not enough. We have to be able to articulate what were the circumstances, what was happening, what was that person doing, what did you do to try and de-escalate? Did you try to get out of the line of fire, so to speak, before you took this action? And what did you do afterwards? All very important. And guys, if you fail to understand this and fail to adhere to it, you're going to end up like Mr. Livingston and find yourself in prison potentially. All right. I welcome any comments, any thoughts, any feedback. Feel free to drop those below. As always, I want to thank you for being a part of this platform, listening to me ramble. Please like, share, and subscribe. Check out my playlist. And as always, go to bonesandbrewsecuritygear.com, bonesandbrewsecuritygear.com. Get yourself a t-shirt, morale patch, support the platform, and help subsidize what we do here. As always, if you're working, please be careful, watch your back, watch your six, and as always, be great. All right? Be great.
But I got money in the bank, gold in the safe, 30 in the clip, I got more in my waist, done the whole shit, I can let it go.